Welcome to Naveem Connect, the place where spirituality meets the messy but beautiful reality of being human. We're your hosts, Jean and Humphrey. And today, our podcast, we're going to ask a question. Where does the soul come from? It's a question that humanity has been asking long before we had language, long before we had science, religion, or philosophy. Every culture has tried to answer it, and none of them have completely able to. Yet all of them point to something more than just flesh and bone. Today, we're not here to prove anything or convince anyone. We're here to sit with the mystery, explore the beliefs, and ask why this question still matters in how we live, love, and understand ourselves.
That's right, Jean. And I have been very excited about us having this conversation because I think it brings everything full circle, everything that we've been talking on the other podcasts. But today, talking about where does the soul come from, what's in it, what the thoughts are, different beliefs, so forth. It's something that I think we're prime our audience for this. So I'm very excited about today.
Awesome. So let's then kick it off with the first question, which is, foundational, I believe, which is, what do we mean when we talk about the soul?
Starting deep. How can we start easy?
Well, I'm trying to baseline it. I'm trying to baseline the conversation for our listeners and what do we mean when we say the soul?
All right. No, it makes sense. Let's level set. Okay. So for the purposes of our discussion today and so that everyone's on the same page, the soul, when we talk about the soul, it's that aspect of ourselves, not our physicality, not our mind, is that other aspect that makes us who we are, right? And when we say who we are is the inner you, right? So
the center of awareness, identity.
Your identity, your awareness. If you can think of the best way, and I've had this discussion, interesting enough, recently a lot, is if you close your eyes and you can try to look, you close your eyes and you try to look through your eyes, right? When you'll see darkness and you try to look, you can still sense that there's something there. You can still feel things. You can still feel thoughts and everything else. But it's almost like you're looking at yourself, right? It's a simple exercise. If you just close your eyes, you can look at. So there is something that is separate from your body, separate from your mind, that in many cultures and in many beliefs, it's said to keep going, whether you're, when we die, it just keeps going on and on. So it's that essence, let's call it that, the essence of who we are. That's the soul.
Okay. And so you brought up that many cultures. So why have humans across cultures asked where it comes from?
Yeah. Okay. So you and I have a friend that is a very logical person, right? And actually many friends are very logical, but the reason, so all our lives, right? So if you think about it from a human experience, when we were born, we believe that's when life begins from the moment that we're born, and life ends from the moment we're dead, right? Just the time that we can experience is what we are. But if we're all truthful and we're all looking into it, throughout that life, there are experiences that we just cannot explain through our life, right? Meaning, sometimes you meet people and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I've met you before. I feel like I've experienced this before. You run into scenarios and you're like, this feels eerily familiar to me, or you have some knowledge that you just cannot explain. You have it, right? You haven't gone to school for. So there are things that we just cannot explain. And I believe, we take our experience, and every human probably felt the same. There's always that, where does that come from? Where is that? That question of what is that, right?
Yeah.
Now, in many beliefs and traditions, there's a concept of the inner wanting, right? Like we all as human, again, if you in those quiet moments when you close your eyes, when you kind of, even when you meditate, there is an inner knowing. Like you do know that there is something bigger than you, that there's something more than you, right? So that question is what's driven humanity, philosophers, religious people, religious to answer that, because innately we have that, right? It's just the current world and past world, the way we live doesn't answer that question.
Why does life matter at all? Right?
Yeah.
And I think, or why are we here?
Why do we go through life? Period.
Why do we go through life? And there's all these
life?
questions around just like life and death.
No, it's true. But so to that point that you're making, there's also the concept of, what happens. Is this it? Like we live and we die, and then we die. That's it. Everything that I've done, everything that dies with me, right? Or what happens after? Is there a heaven? Is there hell? There is that I don't know what happens concept that I'm we can't go back in time, but I'm assuming everybody has always questioned, like, what happens?
But then I think then everybody accepts that there is a soul, right? Because if people are asking what happens to us after our physical bodies die, then isn't the implication there that everybody believes that there is a soul?
I wouldn't say that everybody believes, but especially if you think of logical people, if you drive the logical answer, there must be a soul, right? There must be something. But we don't know for sure. And that is the issue, right? It's like, I can't put my hands on it. I can't touch it. I can't see. And that is where people go. That's where the dynamics become, right? It's like, I feel there's something, but I can't touch it. I can't figure out. So I don't know. And I feel that is the struggle. And that has been the struggle through centuries, right? I feel it. As a human, I know, but I can't touch it. I can't put my finger on it, so I can't prove it. That's the struggle.
So then where do souls come from according to spiritual or philosophical or scientific perspectives?
Well, I think different traditions, right? And I'm going to call it traditions, talk about it in different ways. Like for instance, the Eastern traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and so forth, they talk about the soul, sort of the karmic experience, right? So you live multiple lives to kind of grow your soul. The whole purpose of life is for you to kind of grow in there as you need to, and so on, until you get to the point of enlightenment or disconnection, depending on which tradition you looked at, right? Obviously, we both come from a Catholic background, so in the Catholic religion, it's a whole, your soul has to go.
Well, the soul is created by God, right?
Exactly. So in that kind of thing, straight over. Now, that concept, and this is my own, and for our listeners, this is Humphrey Christian's thoughts, not necessarily it's not a Bible, it's not a religion or anything like that. But if you look through all the traditions, including Catholic religion and what they say, they all refer to the soul coming from either God or universal consciousness or something similar, right? So for the purposes of today, I'm going to refer to it as universal consciousness. So there is this universal energy that can only experience or test or see the different possibilities in the universe through experiences that we can have, right? So it sort of divides itself, right? Let's say, so it sends, let's call it a spark or a division, a portion of itself that creates a soul that's, let's call it, that's the soul that starts that journey of experiences through life. And that's what we go through. And eventually, as we grow and we experience things and we reach enlightenment, we go back to that universal consciousness. So that universal energy, right? Now, there's multiple layers to what I'm saying. I'm trying to simplify it, right? But if you consider the term God or the term, different deities in other traditions, all the stories are the same. It's that we start from this divine energy, universal consciousness, and we return to it with all this knowledge and all these experiences that we have through it, right? So hence the concept of, in yoga, it's called union, right? So the goal of your life is to reach that union, right? And that has other implications that we're going to, obviously, I think we're going to talk about it later today, but it is we all come from that energy and we all go back to that energy. Now, what happens in between those two, it's up to all of us.
Well, there's actually a third in my research, there's a third, which is that it's eternal. So it's always existed. So it doesn't come from anywhere. It just has always existed. That's Hinduism.
So I agree with that term in the sense of universal consciousness, it's eternal, right? So that universal concept, that energy is eternal, right? The sparks that come out of it. And again, this is my own belief. I'm not saying this is true or false. We're just explaining my understanding. It is, so the universal energy or consciousness is eternal. That always exists and it always will exist, right?
Yeah.
But those call them sparks that go out of it and have to go through these experiences, those begin and end. But you're right. If we look at it from an energy, like just purely, it is eternal. That source never ends. Always infinite.
I don't know. I think that's the hardest one to accept, that like the soul has just always existed. Like I can get with it that if it's been created, I could get with it if it's like emergent, right? Like it arises through consciousness and experiences and stuff. But when you say it's eternal and it's always existed, I don't know if my brain has the capacity to really understand that. Because that to me just sounds like I'm like, I don't understand.
Well, why? Okay, so why? It's funny because, okay, for me, that makes sense. Like, so for me, that concept, I have no issue with it. Like the eternal concept, it's like, it's always there. It's always going to be there.
What do you mean? Like nothing just exists.
But that, okay.
There's an explanation for everything. So how is it that we're just supposed to accept that the soul just exists from the eternal belief view?
Well, okay. So I'm gonna make the distinction, right? The eternal, the universal consciousness, the universal energy always exists. It's always there. We come from that, meaning we're all that part. Like, so we're all part of that. And this is the concept that I think at the heart of every tradition and everything, this is the message. We're all part of this universal energy, like meaning we're all one. We are not separate beings. We're all part of that. We are experiencing our lives and our cycles separately so that we can experience all the possibilities. But deep down, we're all part of that. And that thing, again, I'm going to call it universal consciousness. It's eternal. It's always existed. It has all the knowledge, all the things, past, future, present. Everything's there, right? Now, it could be my engineering brain. It could be my, scientific brain. It could be something like that. To me, it's just the concept that there's this energy. It makes sense. Now, in other podcasts, we talked about the concept of energy, right? You can't destroy, like it can only be transferred. You can't create or destroy, right? It's always there. So why can't we believe that? Like that, we take it as a fact, right? Yeah. Energy is there. Why is that different for universal consciousness? If we think about it as energy, so it's always there.
But you could create energy.
Not from scratch. That's the point. You have to transfer the energy. You just can't create energy you have to transfer the energy.
Correct.
Right. transfer the energy. You start with source to transfer it. But there's always a
Right.
source. That source has energy. So the source. So why can we think? So the same we think about like a piece of coal is energy, right? It store energy in it. You burn it, and then that creates the
My
heat.
brain cannot accept it. I'm just going to live to let live in this situation.
But that's no. I'm glad. Look, we're having this discussion because I think everyone is on the same boat. Like I think a lot. Everybody has that. That is. I think that is the not. Like, if I were to say what is the biggest challenge of being human is getting to terms with that thing, right? Because
Yeah.
everything we see and everything we can see is like everything we can see with our eyes and experience is like there is a beginning and end to everything, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you step back, everything in
Apparently
life
not
is
to the eternal soul, though.
no, but
Because that just always exists.
okay. So not the eternal. That's what I like. In my head, I have it in two buckets. Like the soul, it's part of that universal energy, but the thing that never ends is the universal energy. But the soul has a beginning and an end, and the beginning and an end is the journey to go and experience things. Right. So in my, I always, I kind of visualize things in my head. So if you, I visualize like a lake, like a bucket of water. Let's think about it as a bucket of water, right? So the universal energy is that bucket of water. You take a drop of the water, just if you can imagine a drop of water jumping out of their water, right? Going
Yeah, I
up in
get it.
there
It's
and then
like the
coming
Soul
back.
movie from Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah. So that bucket of water is the infinite, right? Now, again, the way I'm describing it to you, a bucket is not, it's finite, right? So the bucket. So it has to end. But that is, and I think that is the part that for us is the challenge. And it is, going deep into if you read in scriptures, in traditions, the common thread has always been we don't have the capacity to understand that. As in, it's too big for us to put our
Yeah.
hands through it, right? Like it's too big.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, you know what? I can't. I've recognized my limitations in this
Right.
particular on the eternal belief view. So I'm just gonna, I'm
But
gonna
besides that
let
part,
people.
so besides
Yeah.
the beginning and end, where it comes from, I think we all agree, and this is the struggle of humanity, that there is something more than just the body and the mind, right? Like there is something more. So I think if people
No, I
accept that
think
there's something
isn't there
more.
like atheists or somebody that doesn't believe, like they don't believe that there is there's nothing. It's just like you live, you die, and that's it.
Yeah, but they don't believe in God or anything like that. But
Yeah.
if you ask them, they do believe like there is something more.
No, is it
Hence,
like an agnostic or
I found
atheist?
yeah.
It's one of the two.
So
Well, let me ask you this. So, why is it so important for us to understand or define the soul? How does that help us understand ourselves better?
well, to question. So I believe it helps us. So if we understand the hard concept of look, we're all come from the same universal consciousness. We're all part of one. We're not alone. We're part of a collective. Understanding that helps us understand ourselves. Like sometimes, if we take it as a fact, let's say, if we start from that we are a unique soul, like we're soul experiencing things, so life and through multiple lifetimes or different experiences, it helps us figure out the whole pattern of growth, a pattern of why things happen to us. But the concept of unification, that we're all part one, it helps us connect better to people, right? It helps us, and we've spoken about this in other podcasts, is if we take it as a fact that we're all part of a collective, we're all come from the same source, we start treating people differently. We start looking at people with empathy. So our entire life becomes better, right? Or it helps us get our life to a better place because we start understanding that it's not just our physical bodies, it's not just our experiences. There's something more. So we start then that it helps us start that self-discovery process of understanding ourselves, understanding what our actual wants and needs are. Like what are things that we want to grow? What are the things that we like to do? What are the creative outlets that we have? Right. Which
I think what you're saying
people don't.
I think what you're saying is like understanding our motivations or our purpose, right?
Yeah.
And because I feel like with let's say with Judaism or like Christianity, like the Abrahamic religions, right? Like those religions, God created our souls. We have a purpose. There's moral responsibility, and we have choices.
Right.
Right. And then with the universal consciousness belief system, right? Doesn't that kind of highlight like continuity or learning across lifetimes, right? Like, so you only know that you're here for a little bit. You're going to learn what you're going to learn, and then you're going to move on, and then you're going to come back and you're going to learn other stuff. So like, wouldn't those two things be like very different in your perspective if you believe one or the other?
Very different, right? And we explore this a little bit on the religious and
Not
the
spiritual.
spiritual but not religious podcast.
Yeah.
But it is. I think you're good. So yes, completely different, right? One is more of a, and I hate to say it again, but it's a concept of more of control, right? If you're like, this is finite and you have to live a particular way, you have to do this a particular way, and beginning and end, it forces you into like a cage almost, right? I gotta follow this. Whereas if you know that there is, as you mentioned, multiple lives that you have to grow, like it's learning experiences, growing and expanding, the responsibility it's on you, right? It's like not somebody telling you it's your responsibility to do that, which now that we're talking about it, it's one of the biggest tenets in, for instance, like in yoga, there's a concept of when you're kind of meditating, you're like, I am responsible, right? And when you say that, it means you are in charge of how you respond to every situation or every scenario that you run into, right? So it shifts that responsibility and at the end of the day, it's your call or how you want to drive that versus having someone telling you this is what you got to do or these are the rules and you can't follow the. So I believe when you do that shift, when you're responsible, when you're the one that you're hooking on, you become more aware, right, of your actions, and you become more conscious of how your actions affect other people and everything else. And I think it makes, it helps you with that growth process. Whereas when you have somebody kind of driving or setting rules and stuff like that, it's almost like you're giving away that. It's like, well, they told you go through life not really conscious because you're not self-aware of your actions. You're just following certain rules. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, being self-aware and being conscious is all about you kind of like choosing the way you want to live, right? And then, so I feel like, is it fair to say that understanding where your soul comes from isn't only understanding where it comes from, but how you choose to live your life?
Yeah, totally agree. And I think one affects the other. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what happens, like, what's the deeper truth about the human existence when we contemplate the soul? Does that
Well,
question even make sense?
yeah, I know it. um, it does make sense, and so to me, the biggest, I think the biggest realization, right, and this is where I think going to our back to our previous discussion, the struggle of humanity, it makes us realize that life is not just a physical experience,
Mm.
right? That we're more than our body and our mind. And once you realize, like, once that penny drops, it changes your perspective on everything, right? Because it forces you, once you realize, look, there's something more than just my body and my mind, and this life is just more than the physical part of it. You look at the world different. You look at other people in particular differently.
Mm-hmm.
And you start developing, I believe you develop a little bit more love and compassion for other people, but at the deepness of it, you grow more. It helps you grow because, you know, if you think of the physical world that we live in, it's a very sort of survival of the fittest, competitiveness, the strong survive. That's the
Yeah.
mentality, right? When you separate yourself from that and you realize there's more than that, then you stop living that way, right? You stop kind of competing with people. You start kind of doing that. You're like, wait, yeah, we can all win. As in, like, we can all get there together, right? Now, that doesn't
So
mean for people hearing us, I'm not saying competitive is not good or anything like that. Yeah, there's a place for everything in life. But when you come into the concept of our personal lives, taking that there's more than our physical body and there's more than us against them changes your perception completely.
okay, how else does it shape your life, right? By kind of understanding where your soul comes from.
Well, if we take it, the discussion we're having of everything's coming from the universal, we all come from the same place. You start getting more connected to people. It builds more connections, so more compassion, more loving for other people, right? And whereas now I think when you look at it from a different perspective, it's more an isolation kind of mode, right? It's me against the world.
I actually feel like, yes, that, but fundamentally, I think if you get down to like brass tacks and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like what happens when you realize we're all interconnected, right? Or what you do affects other people,
Right.
is that, doesn't that give more weight to like understanding your own choices, understanding the responsibilities that we have towards each other, right?
So, so yeah, it does. But at the same time, and I think this is where, and I'm going to talk purely on my own experience. That's the hardest part of that process of understanding that, or not understanding it, just accepting it. I'm going to call it accepting it. Because I think it's more of like, do I want to accept that or not? That there's more than my physical body.
I mean, let me just tell people, when we on this podcast, when we're talking about doing the work, that's the work, is the accepting of it
That
part.
is the work, right? Because, and I'll tell you why. Because, and again, my personal experience, because when you do that, you're right, Jean. It makes you like, it gives more weight to your responsibilities and how you behave. But then it also forces you to look back at things you've done in your life and things,
Right.
and that part sucks. There's no other way to say it. It's just the
But
horrible
that's
part
also the only way we
of
learn.
having to go back and say, "Oh man, like I was horrible in that situation, or I could have handled that completely different." Right? Like, so it
But that's
forces
the
you to
only
see
way we
things.
learn.
True. But it is a hard part. That's the hard, like, you know how hard it is to go back and be like, oh man, like, yeah, accept that you were wrong. And then not only that you're wrong, but that you did something that in hindsight you could have done better. So that is the work, right? Now, once you do that, and it is, and for our listeners, it is a hard part. But once, if you do that moving forward, it allows you to move forward. And once you move forward, then you can look into it, to your point, and be more responsible and look at every situation from a different angle, right? And be be a more conscious human being?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're taking the easy way out by saying like, oh, it's really hard to do. It's like, yeah, but why is it really hard to do? Right? Oh, yeah, you have to like be accountable. You have to go back and you have to look at your choices and take responsibility for it. But like, I mean, we just said what you have to do. Doesn't that sound simple enough? Why did so many people not do it?
You know how, because it is, that's it. So first of all, that is an excellent question. To me, the answer is, it is the hardest thing to do as a human is accept your mistakes, right? Or accept that you did something wrong. I think that is the biggest challenge of humanity. As a human being, that is the worst. It's like, what? And and the reason is because especially when this work, when you go back and you're conscious about it, you feel what you did to someone. And that is the worst part, right? Because when you look at things from an empathetic point of view and you consciously and aware look back, say if you hurt someone, you feel that hurt. And nobody wants to feel that. Like purposely, nobody wants to hurt, like, isn't it
Yeah,
like you can't hurt yourself?
I get it. I get it, but I don't think that everybody ultimately goes back and they think, oh, because they're empathetic, that they don't want to feel the hurt. I feel like there's some people, because it depends on your perspective, right? If you believe that you're here only for a period of time, right? Again, right? From the soul, like what you believe where your soul came from, right? And you're here for a period of time and you're here to learn, right? And have experiences, and then you die and then you come back and you learn more and you have more experiences. That innately in your perspective, you don't view that you're perfect, that you're here for an experience and you're here to learn. So like at the logical brain of me is like, if you're learning, you're going to make mistakes.
True.
Right? So isn't that implicit that like, hey, you're not going to be perfect? And then
so two different things. One is, so to your point, yes, that innately means you're not going to be perfect. You're here to learn, but that is, you consciously know that moving forward. What I'm referring to is the work of once you realize that and you go back, to get to that point where you're saying like, oh, it's hard to, like, now let me say this. I'm again talking from my personal experience. I'm pretty sure some people can just say, oh, I get it, and look back and be like, oh, that was a learning experience, and then just move on and not have any kind of reaction or any kind of feeling. I would contest that for more than the majority of people, that's not the case, because it's almost like looking in the mirror kind of thing.
This goes back to the creating part of the soul's origin, right? If we're created, we have a creator God, blah, blah, blah. They expect certain things out of us. There's moral responsibilities, et cetera, then, but at least in Christianity, self-righteousness isn't one of those things that's, that you're supposed to be engaging in.
True.
Right? So why is it that it's so hard for people to see that they did something wrong?
Again, because I think that's the hardest part of human nature. I think that's the hardest part of human nature. I think that is the hardest thing, as I'm experiencing myself with my kids at the moment. It is the hardest thing to accept that you did something wrong or that you're wrong.
Do you think it's like more like it's hard to accept because we know when we do something wrong?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you think it's more that the person doesn't want to say one thing and then do another?
Good question. No, I don't think that way. The way I look at it is, and I agree with you, people people know, when you do something, like, I don't call it something wrong because it's not right or wrong, right or wrong. It's based on the way you look at things. But when you hurt someone, let's call it when you do something that's hurtful to someone, right? You do know that. Like, we innately know when I'm hurting someone. But you make a choice, right? Because when you're in the mentality of, it's the survival of the fittest and it's me against you, I am going to do something for me to survive, like, that works for me, right? So you make that choice, and because you made that choice, I don't care what happens, I'm going to do it because it helps me, right? So it's a choice. It is, life is all a choice. It is a choice that you make in that mentality. Mm-hmm. To your point, when you shift that mentality, all right, and you grow and you're like, look, we're all together, then you don't, because it's not like me against you. I'm like, I'm making a choice not to hurt you, right? But at the end of the day, it is a choice. It is and I do believe it's conscious. Mm-hmm. Some people do it, and I believe it's not like, oh, I don't want to. I think it's people do it because it is me against you. So I am going to do what's right for me, independent of what happens to you, knowing that it's going to hurt you. But I won't care because it's helping me. See what I mean? Like, it's a mentality thing.
So let me ask you a question. So if we at the beginning said that the soul is the essence of somebody,
yeah,
right? The soul is basically what makes us us, yeah, right? Then what you just said about the bad choices, is that the soul or is that our ego making those choices?
So, okay.
I'm going to hit you with the hard one.
Woo! Okay, so we're gonna, and please comment, jump in, because I know a lot of people are gonna have ideas on this and the thoughts. So in that concept, I believe is the ego, right? It's an ego-driven decision, not the soul. And the reason I'm saying that is because, if you've ever talked to anybody in their older age, right? Like people that are, especially at the end of their lives, everyone in their soul knows or have a feeling when they do something like that, right? That, mm-hmm, like, they may have done something because of their ego, they were driven because of they wanted their career or they wanted whatever they wanted. But deep down, when they're old and they don't have that ego and, like, they don't have anything more to gain, that they either confess or that pain kind of gets like, oh, I regret doing X, Y, or Z, right? Because your soul, it's almost like your soul always knows, right? Like, and some people get it, your gut feeling, your mind. Like I think deep down, you always get a feel for what you do, right? And I've had this conversation with very logical people that only think about 2 + 2 is 4. And even them, they're always like, yeah, no, I get a feel, like I can feel, like I can sense it when I'm doing, when you're doing the right thing, you feel it, you sense it. And when you're not doing it, you also sense it. But your ego or your desire to do something, whether it's for your career or your advancement or personal gain, overrides that.
So based on what you just said, would it be correct to say that you think that the soul can get disconnected at some point from you?
What do you mean disconnected from you?
Well, because if you're not making decisions, or you knew something was right, and then you did something that was wrong, and let's say it's the soul versus the ego again, right, you keep on choosing the ego, over time, doesn't your soul, like, don't you get disconnected from it?
I see what you mean. Because
again, the soul is the true essence of you.
Yeah. Well, I don't think so. I don't believe you disconnect from your soul, but I believe you stop listening. Like you shut off, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't believe it's a conscious choice to do it. I think especially now, the life we live, especially in the moment in time that we happen to be living in. Everything's driven to keep you
in the physical world. Yeah.
Right. And so there is no quiet time there's no time for you to do that connection that you talked about, right? So I don't think it's that you choose to disconnect, but you can listen. I think about it as you cannot listen to your soul because you're distracted, or everything keeps you engaged in the physical, and you can't do that work.
I'm going to say this, right? Somebody told me once that time is kind of relative, right? That like when you say you don't have time, that's not actually real, right? Because if somebody said, like, let's say you had all this stuff to do, right? You're busy at work, you have all this stuff, you have kids, etc., etc., etc. But they said, stop what you're doing and sit down for 2 hours and I'll give you $2 million. You think you're going to have time? You're going to have time.
People will find time. Yeah. People will find time.
So then it's not actually a call about, oh, they don't have time. Yeah. It's an indication of it's not prioritized.
True. And I agree with you 100%. It's a priority thing. And I contend that priority is because of the world, because of where we live, right? Because we get used to that kind of pattern. You got to do, like, we're ingrained into this, like, oh, you got to do this, you got to be working, you got to do this, you got to be checking out your emails, you got to be checking out your social media, you got to be looking at you got to know, you got to talk. So, whereas there's nowhere in general media, right, that's telling you should take some time to sit down for 5 minutes and just and not even meditate, contemplate yourself, just think about it, just look at your soul. There's nowhere that tells you that, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it is hard to so I agree with you, Jean. It's not, there is the time, it's just the priority is not there. And it is hard to make that connection, to prioritize that.
So is it as simple as like putting 15 minutes, 30 minutes on your calendar to sit there and reconnect with yourself?
Yeah. I mean, so again, we're saying it's simple. We know it's not simple to just, hey, I'm going to take it with the weather. But it is when you step back, it is literally like that. Just put 5, not even 15 or 30. You can take 5 minutes, just put a 5-minute block and just sit there and do like no noise, or close your eyes and do a contemplation. And I think that just, even as small as 5 minutes, helps getting you into that.
So I just want to say to our listeners, for me, what was an indicator that something was wrong is that if you try to sit there for 15 minutes by yourself and spend time with yourself and you don't want to do it, isn't that an indicator that, like, dude, you don't even want to spend time with yourself for 15 minutes, or you can't?
Right.
Like, to me, when I experienced that, it was like, wait, why?
Why? Okay, so why? So I'm glad you're saying this, Jean. So why? Why was it hard for you? Because I think a lot of people are in that same boat, right? Everybody has that. Why was it hard?
I think for me, it was hard because I had so many things I needed to do in the world. So going with what you were saying, that there's a lot of distractions in this physical world that kind of pull us away from going into our inner world. Right. And then when you go into the inner world, I mean, after being in the physical world and having all these like things that kind of like sensory things that kind of, are in your face, you go into the inner world, it can get it's kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You go in there, like, what's in here? I don't know. It's boring.
Right.
Right. And then it takes a lot of work to, like, Carl Jung, he did active imagination, right? But that takes forever to like start actually happening and going in and dropping into your consciousness. It takes practice, it takes work, and it takes diligence to do it. And when you don't really see results, right? Like right when you do something, people don't, like, I didn't really want to do it.
Right.
Right. I feel like when I first started kind of going into my inner world, I was just doing it like out of hope. Right. And it's almost like working out. You know, when you start like working out again,
Yeah.
right? You're going to the
Yeah.
gym, you have like excess 20 pounds on you, and you're just going every single day. But at first you see nothing's happening, right?
Right.
It's like you're
Right.
still the same. And then all of a sudden you're dropping a couple weight, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You're starting to look better in your clothes.
Yeah.
And then once you start seeing the effects of what you're doing and what you're actually investing in time to do, right?
Yeah.
That's the easier part, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you
yeah.
have like the momentum to go.
Right.
But when you're like just sitting there for 15 minutes and you're trying to figure out all these like deep ass questions, right? Like trying to figure out all these deep questions. I mean, your brain is like spinning around in circles. And like oftentimes for me, I just got more confused. I had more questions than I had answers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what about you? I mean, did it ever happen to you?
Yeah. I mean, so I actually, yes. So it
Wait.
happened a lot.
Let me finish my thing. So what I ended up doing, I had more questions and answers, but I just kept on asking the questions and I just kept on sticking with it.
Right.
And what I think I figured out is over time, I started figuring out what things meant to me personally, right? And also in life, I really believe in synchronicity, and some of the things that I was questioning or some of the things that I was thinking at in that particular point, I'd hang out with a friend, they would say something, I'd walk on the street, something would happen, and then it was like a sign, right? And it helped me, it really helped to build my inner truths, my values, my inner values, and then also my perspective on things.
Right. Yeah. So your experience, I think, so I think a lot of people can relate to your experience of whether you've gone through it or not, but in both ways. So I had tried it many times in my past, in my younger years, like my 20s and my 30s, and nothing would stick. I couldn't sit for I couldn't get for a minute. I think my mind would just not stop. It would be like, what the hell? Like, it just, I don't see it. Wow, whatever. Right.
Right.
And it's funny because in preparation for today, I was thinking about it. Like, I was like, in one phase of my life, I couldn't sleep at night because my brain was always like kind of on, and I was just on all the time.
Right.
So, but it wasn't until I had no choice, right? To your point of synchronicities, like I went through, and it's funny. It's all happened because of when I went through my divorce process, and I went through a period of feeling alone, as we discussed in our last podcast. That forced me to, like, I was looking for, like, what do I do? It was like, I don't know what I do. So it was almost like I had no choice. Let me try this. But I was in a point in my life where it's like, okay, let me try this. Nothing else, I got nothing else. Let me try this. Right. And you said something where sticking through it was the key for me as well, right? It's like, you don't see it, like you try and like, okay, like I did it, like, I don't see anything. Like, you're supposed to, I don't see what they're saying I'm supposed to see, or I don't feel what they're saying. But you stick through it. And when you stick through it, you're right. You start then seeing the results, right? You start seeing, like you saying, the answers to you are coming to synchronicity, your friends. To me, it's the same thing, like, or we're coming to a dream or something, like, so you start seeing the things. But what you realize is that, and I like the way you put it, it's all, you start connecting internally, right? You start connecting with your soul. And that is the key, because your soul is the connection.
Well, I feel like your soul, you have all the answers, right? Yeah. Like, if you spend enough time doing the inner work, you have all the answers. What happened to me is I realized that the outer world, the physical world, was actually validating my inner world, right? Through synchronicity.
Yeah.
And so, but figuring out, answering whatever questions that pop up when you sit there in your lonesome or, in your solitude, right? I think those are like what you for yourself is telling you. Those are the questions that you need to answer, right? That's why the question's coming up.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like what you said, Jean, because your soul does know. Like, so you do, like, the essence of you do know, like, meaning you do know what you like, what the direction, your destiny, or your path is, as in what career, what partner, what you should be doing in your life. Like, you do know all that, right?
Right. You just disconnect it if you don't.
You disconnect. And again, and I've seen this multiple times, right? So now we call it midlife crisis and all stuff, but a lot of people get to a point in their life, they're like, I don't like my work, I don't like this, or I like get divorced. But it is because you're not in alignment, right? And when you're not in alignment, your soul will tell it, like your body will, it will come out somehow, right? Like you're not happy. But when you do listen to your soul and when you make that connection, then everything, to your point of synchronicity, things start falling into place. Like you find that job or the thing that you're looking for, or you go back into, hey, I really like doing X, Y, and Z, and you go ahead in the direction. Like now, when you are in alignment, everything sort of works out. Like, and I'm not saying magically work, but everything does line up, right? When you're doing, or you're in the place that you're supposed to be, you're in a relationship that you're supposed to be, things do work out, right? And you get there by that connection.
Yeah, I feel like if you think, okay, going back, right? Christianity, the kingdom of God is in you.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And in the universal consciousness, we're all a part of the consciousness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, isn't that kind of like a through line?
It is a true line. And it is. That is a true line. A true line is, look, your soul, which is in you, it is the connection to that universal, and again, I'll call it universal consciousness, right? That has that knowledge, that knows it all, that has the answers, right? Has the guidance for you. So when you do that connectivity, things go work out. Now, I'm going to tell you something that is the interesting part. Every successful, fairly successful people in the world does some sort of meditation or inner work.
Okay, interesting, because that was the next question I was going to ask you, which is, what are the exact practices that help somebody understand their soul, or understand their soul, or vis-a-vis ourselves or us better?
Right. I would say quiet time or meditation is one of the biggest ones that I always consider, right?
Christians use prayer or devotion, but that could be...
Prayer, you know what? Prayer is actually no different than meditation, right? If you think about it, the prayer is just a meditation, just like a meditation, right? Mm-hmm. Now the difference is, and this is where I've come to this place in my life. It's how you pray. So specifically to Catholicism, if you pray consciously, it is like meditation. But if you just verbalizing words that you learn unconsciously, it's
like
no different.
Meaning saying like the Our Father, the Hail Mary,
with no thought process, with no conscious. It's the same thing as you trying to meditate, thinking about your grocery list, and like it's no different than So it's not the activity. Mm-hmm. So for our listeners, it's not the activity. You can pray, you can meditate, whatever you do, but it's how you do it. And when I say how you do it is, do it consciously. So let's say 5 minutes of your day and just literally sit there and your entire being be there, be aware.
So what Humphrey is saying about consciousness is being present and focused.
Yes. Being present and focused. Yes.
Okay.
Because if you're in
There's
the moment,
also journaling. I mean, we advocate for journaling on Naveem a lot.
Yeah, actually, since you brought in Naveem, and this is the shameless plug, guys, it is a Naveem podcast. We do have in our self-discovery section a section for meditation and journaling. So we do have some tools to help you for those of you who are looking to start the process. But we'll be honest, at the end of the day, is you have to make that choice, right? And I think,
and you got to do the work.
And you got to do the work. And there's no way around it, guys. You have to do the work. But it is so much fulfilling. Once you start, as Jean said, it's like, and I love it, Jean, that you said, it's like working out, because that is the best analogy. You don't see any results working out for the first one. You just see pain, no pain, no gain. But once you start seeing the results, it shifts as every time. So the same thing is with this work, right? You start, and the more you do it, the more results you do, and the more you listen to yourself, the more things happen the more you go inside. And this is the amazing thing. The more you go inside and connect to your soul, the more your outside reality reflects your choices and the things that you're supposed to be doing. So, Jean, the big spiritual takeaway from today is that contemplating the soul's origin isn't just philosophy. It's a mirror that shows us who we truly are and who we can become. Whether it's a divine spark or a universal energy, it's the connection that reminds us we're never truly alone.
Totally. And the way we define the soul isn't just about where we come from. It's about how we choose to live. Everyone listening, don't be afraid to just try 15 minutes of intentional quiet time this week to reconnect. Remember, aligning with your soul isn't about perfection. It's about presence, awareness, and choosing each day to live in harmony with who we truly are. Maybe the soul's origin isn't meant to be known, only to be lived. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Naveem Connect.
Please join us for our next episode, where we'll continue to dive into the messy but beautiful reality of being human. We have so much more to explore together. Until then, stay connected and stay kind.